Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we are going to discuss about Spring Data Mongo. So recently, a few days back, I have uploaded one video. Basically, I was talking about Spring Data Mongo, right? We started with Spring Compass, basically the MongoDB Compass, and if you see, this is the playlist that I have created, and the target is here I'm going to upload videos with the Spring Data Mongo, how we are going to connect to MongoDB from any Spring Boot application. And then the focus would be on the geo search, right, in MongoDB. MongoDB comes with the inbuilt capability of proximity search, right, where you want to, let's say you have the coordinates, geo coordinates, right, different locations. So how you can basically use MongoDB and without going to Google Map APIs or other things, right? How you can calculate distance between two different coordinates. So the target is to explore more on that, but to get into there, right, we need to know the basics of Spring Data Mongo, how we can connect to the MongoDB from Spring Boot application, and what all steps that we need to do. Okay. So let's get started on this. And to do that, I think, yeah, so this is the um, Spring Data MongoDB tutorial, right? Or the documentation, official documentations from spring.io. So I would suggest if you have time, go read this documentation so that you will get more insights on this. But to get started, right, first what you need to do is you need to go to the Spring initializer, right? Start.spring.io. Right, I have this here, and I hope you all know by this time. So you can give your group ID, artifact ID, whatever the name, and dependencies. So the most important thing is, I think, Spring Wave and all, you know, which is required. Let's say Spring Wave you have to select. Then another dependency for Spring Data Mongo, right? If you want to connect to MongoDB, then you have to use Spring, or basically just type MongoDB. So when you type MongoDB, right, you see over here Spring Data Reactive MongoDB and Spring Data MongoDB. So reactive programming, I think I would start another playlist on only on the reactive programming, right? But right now let's go ahead with the normal one, okay? Spring Data MongoDB. So once you selected this, I think as of now we are good. We don't need any other dependencies, so you can just generate, and it will be downloaded, that particular zip file, and you just need to extract and load it to your IDE. So just to save some time, right, I have already downloaded this, so let's get into the IDE here. So I'm using Visual Studio Code over here with different plugins, so extensions and all I have used. So if you are using IntelliJ or anything, any IDE, that should be fine. Okay. So let me go to the build.gradle file, right, where we should see what is the dependencies that I have. Okay, I think the wave that we selected and the starter, test, and other things, right, it comes by default, let's say. So if you see here, this is the important thing for MongoDB. Okay, so you need to have Spring Boot starter data MongoDB. This is the dependency first you need to add, and definitely in Gradle, right, you should have all these things: Spring dependency management and for Spring Boot, right? Okay, so last time, okay, one more thing is, if you have not seen my previous video, right, please go ahead and just have a look to this MongoDB Compass, because that is what we are going to use as in MongoDB client, okay? Because I have explained how we can install the MongoDB client in our local system, that is the community edition, right? That is not the actual cluster, Mongo cluster. So you can just watch this video to get more detail on that. So let's open that one, right? So MongoDB, yeah, MongoDB Compass, you can see here, right? Okay, so this is the client, like you use Oracle SQL Developer and all, right? So this is the similar thing for MongoDB. So what is my URI is this one, because I have not created any username password just for when I install in my local, right? I did not want it to be. So without username password, you just need to specify the host and port and connect. Okay, so by default it has three different databases here. If you see admin, config, and local. So in local, I have start of logs, which comes by default, right? Okay. So let's try to connect to this particular instance of MongoDB. Okay. So I forgot to copy. So let me just go to a new window, right? Okay. Let me copy this URI part, which we might need. First of all, our dependency is already there, right? We have added these dependencies. Then the next step, what we have to do is we just okay. So data.mongodb.uri. Okay. So spring data.mongodb.uri. This is the one where you have to specify the connection URI. This is the connection URI. Okay. If you have username and password, or let's say if you have LDAP based connectivity or your auth mechanism and everything, if that is connecting to one cluster, let's say, it will have replica set and all those things, right? So if that is the case, then also all the complete URI you can specify over here. Okay. So that was the next step. And the further step what we have to do is, let me go to the main application over here. Okay. And let me just wait and enable Mongo repository, right? Okay. So the next step would be to specify, uh, this is the one, if you want to enable the Mongo repositories, right? If you want to connect to MongoDB, so in your Spring Boot application, this is my enable, basically Spring Boot application. This is the main application, right? So I'm just using, in my previous video, I was using this one, right? So here only I'm trying to enable the same thing. So this is what you have to specify. Okay. So this is the second step that we did, right? So now let's try and start the application and let's see whether at least the application is running or not. Okay. Then we'll get to know whether the connectivity is happening or not. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. So it failed to start the application, right? Let's see what is the issue. Let's okay. If you see here, right, it threw exception with message database name must not be empty. So when you are trying to connect, right, we if you see here, we have multiple databases over here, right? And the moment you enable the Mongo repository, definitely whenever you connect to any of the database, because this is my complete Mongo instance in my local, but in Mongo, right, there are logical separations you can do. You can create n number of databases, right? So here I have admin, config, and local. So it cannot directly just connect to one cluster. You have to specify the database name where it has to connect, right? So I need to specify the database name, and in this case it is local, right? So let me go ahead to go to the application properties and specify the database name. MongoDB.database to local, right? Okay, so we updated the database names we have specified, and now it should basically start the application. Let's see. Let's run the application. Okay, so if you see now, the application is up and running. Okay, here if you see it completed initialization, and I think it started in port 8080, which means our at least the Mongo connection URI, right? That is working fine, and it is able to connect to the database. Okay, because if you see here if you see, right, cluster setting and all those things, right? If you can see over here, it is localhost 27017. Then service name is MongoDB and other details, right? Whatever the required cluster type and local settings, max document length, all those things. So this is what with respect to Mongo client, because it created the Mongo client, right? That is the proof that it was able to connect to the Mongo instance. So it's very simple. If you want to connect to any Mongo instance, you just need to add that particular dependency as part of the first step, okay, in the build.gradle, which is Spring Data Mongo. Then go to your application and specify enable Mongo repository. The next step is you need to specify the URI, okay, and database name, okay, where you want to connect. So this is where you want to connect to single database from your application. Let's say if you want to connect to multiple databases and have multiple Mongo repositories over here, this approach is not going to work. Okay, that is advanced level, which I might come up with another video where we'll have multiple databases and we'll create our Mongo configurations, right? Multiple Mongo clients in our application. So I might create one, I'll just create one more video on that. But for now, if you are connecting to a single database, specify the URI, okay, and database name. And if you have username and password, you can specify over here. Simply, whenever you are connecting, you connect here and take the connection string, right? The moment if you go here, right, and let's say if you have username password, you specify, let's say test, something like that. If you see here, right, auth mechanism is default, it is taking over there, and test:test. This is the username and password, right? So if you see, this is username, password. So if you see here, this is how the connection URI, automatically it is going to form the URI. So you can just copy paste from here and put it over there simply. Okay, this is for local testing. Obviously, in any organization, right, if it is password and all, right, they might have LDAP based or different service account and all. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So this is how we can connect. But now we have connected to the Mongo instance through our application. Now it is connected. But as part of the next step, right, we just need to have one Mongo repository. Just create one collection and see whether we are able to face that or not. So let's do that quickly. Okay, let me simply create one collection name. We'll create one collection name with okay, let's create one collection with simple thing, right? Location. I think location data I already have. Let me user details, okay? And time series and all not required, just create collection, okay? Add data, here I can import JSON or insert document as well, anything is fine. So let's say ID is, I'll just specify ID as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything is fine for now, just for the testing. Username is test 1, 2, 3. And let's put first name colon test. Okay, this is simple, just for the testing, right? Let's have this user detail one collection. And as you know, right, I think we already discussed, it is NoSQL and it has just key value pair, which is nothing but JSON. So let's go ahead and create this particular domain model in our, okay, I have one repository. So let me create a file called user details.java, and here private string ID, okay, which is fine, and then private string username, private string, what else we have, first name, right? It is ID, username, first name. Let me add the getter and setter over here. Source action, generate getter and setter. We need all of them. Okay. So if you know the JPA, right? I think Java Persistence API. It is in the same similar line. So we have this at the rate ID, right? If you want to specify something as primary key, that is what we need to specify here. Rest all document you can leave it, but it needs one ID, right? To differentiate between different models or different objects in the MongoDB, right? Similarly, in JPA we use at the rate entity. Here what we have to use is document, okay? And if you see why it is document, because it is NoSQL, right? NoSQL. So in NoSQL we don't put tables and all. It is always called as it's a collection, or it is for document storage, right? Any kind of document you can store there. So collection is nothing but user details, right? So this is the collection name. Okay, so we are good now. Now the next step is we need to specify whatever the repositories that we have, right? That we have to specify over here. So base packages, right, is nothing but whatever the repositories are available over there, right? In this case, it is ChatGPT slash repositories. Okay. As part of the next step, right? We need to create. So now we have model where we have this mapping, right? What we did over here. If you see here, ID, username, for and first name. If you see here, ID, username, and first name, right? This is the mapping that we created. One model we created and we specified. Okay, this is document type. This is my entity model, right? Whatever we say, or the domain model. Now I need to create one repository here, which is called as user repository.java. Okay, and this extends Mongo repository. Okay, so what am I missing here? Let me go back. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT, right? If anything. Okay, what I did is that mistake that I did here. If you see, this is class, right? That is the reason it was not able to find out, because it's an interface, right? Now we'll get it. So Mongo repository, and if you see here, what would be our so in Mongo repository, this, if you know the CRUD repository or JPA repository, all these things, right? This is again similar to JPA. So it is, if you go there, paging and sorting, all those things will come. So the moment you extend to this interface, right, automatically it is going to provide you lots of flexibility, right, or lots of default implementation, which is nothing but let's say insert, right? So if you want to save, you want to find all these are by default ready-made available for you, but you need to specify on which model you are going to perform all these operations, right? So you need to give your domain model, user details, okay? And what is my ID, which is, what is the type of that one? It is string. So how do you know that? If you go here, user details, ID, at the rate ID, whatever you have given, right, primary key. So that is nothing but your, that type you have to specify here. Okay, so now it is ready. Let's give the stereotype, right, so that we can auto wire and we can see. Okay, now let me go back to, I have some demo controller over here, right? Let me, just for a quick testing, let's create, I think, user details repository. We have to auto-wire, okay? And let's have one method with get mapping only. Instead of API, we will say user details. Okay, and we want to find all the, I think, let's say all the users, whatever we have in our database, right? So get user details, fine. And here I need to just specify user details repository dot find all. Okay, let's don't go for other method, just simple this one. And here it has to be, so this is going to return a list of user details. Right, let me import both of them. TETILS. Okay, let me first import. List. Okay. Java.util.list we need. Then we need user, which is there inside this repository. Okay. Okay, now let's start the application and see whether we are able to fetch the user details from our MongoDB, right? Let's see. Okay, so it was able to start the application and it is running on 80804. That is fine. Now let's go to Postman and see whether we are able to fetch all the data from MongoDB or not. So localhost colon 8080 slash API slash user details. I think it's a get method, and I think we don't have any param, so just want to fetch all the user list, right? So here if you see ID 1 2 3 4 5, then username, and we have first name as test. But what happened to username over here? So username we did not get it because the username here, if you see, right, username N is in small letter, camel convention, right? But if you see in our model, if I go to user details, this is in camel convention. User N is in capital, but here username it is in small. So what we can do is we can, let's say, edit this and make it as this one. Okay, document modified now, username, and let's change the name as well here, right? And see. Uh, okay, let's do one thing. I'll say just James. Okay, and update. Now let's see again. Try to fetch this, and this time we should be able to get all the details, right? ID, username, now it is not null, right? We are able to fetch the details, and first name I updated, I am receiving the James. So it's very simple, okay? So if you see, it is key value pair and just simply like connecting to any relational database, the way in JPA we did, similar way only we have to do. It's just that you need to create the mapping, whatever the domain model, which should be in sync with your MongoDB model collection. And once that is done, right, you should be able to basically just create one repository, and you don't need to code anything. This find all and all, right, we did not do anything. This repository is empty. By default, using the proxy pattern, it is going to implement that. And simply you just need to call it from your controller over here, right? So let's say I have this REST controller. And from here, I just auto add that repository and just I called find all method. And this is going to return all the data to me. Let's say if I add one more over here, if I insert, or let's say if I copy document, okay, and add data, insert document, I'll just specify this. I'll say 5, 6. Instead of this, I'll just mention, let's say Ravi 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now I have two documents over here, and now if I fetch, I should be able to see two documents, right? So it's I think very simple Spring Data Mongo to connect to database and to perform any kind of CRUD operations. Maybe in my next video, right, we'll get more details for CRUD operations, how we'll do insert and all other operations, right, or update and everything. So I'll just have one more video on that, and then basically we'll get into the geo searching, where using coordinates how we can search in MongoDB, right, the distance calculation and everything, which MongoDB will by default without using any map API. We can do all those things. Okay, so that's all for today's video. And if you like this video, and if you are basically, if you want to continue learning MongoDB with this, right, so stay connected with me and wait for my next video. I'm going to come up with the next videos, and we'll cover all the geo searching part and other operations in Spring Data Mongo, right, what we can do. Okay, so if you like the video, please do press the like button and subscribe to my channel, okay, which will give me some motivations to come up with some new videos like this. Thanks for watching the video.